They said it was easy work, quiet hours, good pay, just follow the rules. But rules don't matter when the job was never meant for humans. This is Spookify, and these are shifts you don't come back from. Story number 1. Cemetery groundskeeper with a new section. Walter Mays had been the cemetery's keeper longer than anyone could remember. A veteran of a forgotten war and a widower for just as long, he liked things quiet. The cemetery gave him that. Nestled outside a dying town no one visited unless they had to, it was a small, humble place. Walter knew every inch, every stone, every name, every patch of dirt and root that tried to fight its way through. So when a rusted iron gate appeared one foggy morning, a gate he swore had never been there, he paused. It stood at the far edge of the grounds, half buried in vine and shadow, open just enough to beckon. Walter hadn't seen any construction, no trucks, no permits filed at town hall, and he knew because he delivered the maintenance logs there himself. Still, the gate creaked open with a groan when he touched it. Beyond it stretched a patch of cemetery that didn't belong, not to the records, not to his memory. The ground felt newer, wet somehow, yet every grave marker looked aged. Dozens of headstones lined the earth in haphazard rows, the grass too green, too soft, no weeds. Walter stepped closer. Then he saw the names. Brenda Mallory, January 2nd, 2026. Ernie Langdon, July 4th, 2027. Margaret Clemens, October 10th, 2028, 2025. He knew these people, all of them, small-town folk, lived quiet lives, laughed at the diner, shopped at the market, still alive. He kept walking, slow and cautious. Then he saw his own. Walter Mays, September 18, 2025, cause of death, buried alive. His breath caught. He felt his pulse pound in his ears. He blinked, stepped back, looked again. The stone didn't move, didn't change. He ran straight to the town office, slammed down the photos he'd snapped with his phone. "Who built the new section?" he barked. Deborah at the front desk frowned. "There is no new section, Walter. Cemetery's been full since the 80s. You know that," he insisted. Demanded she check the maps, the town records, the archives. Nothing. Not one document mentioned any expansion. Not a single burial permit had been filed in years. When he returned the next day, more stones had appeared. Tommy Brandt, November 9th, 2026. Martha Ewell, December 25th, 2025. He called them, visited them, alive, laughing, breathing, but not for long. Martha slipped on her front steps and died on Christmas morning. Tommy suffered a heart attack while fixing a power line, on the exact date carved in stone. Walter stopped sleeping. He tried to destroy the stones, smashed one with a sledgehammer. The next morning it was back, pristine. He dug up his own plot, just to check, just to be sure. Nothing there, empty soil. But the next day a second stone sat beside his original one. Same date, same name. Only now the inscription read, "Buried alive, and still screaming." He begged the mayor to see for himself. He brought photographs, proof. But when he returned to the gate with others, it was gone. Just fence and field. But at night, it was always there. Only for him. Walter became obsessed. He stopped maintaining the rest of the cemetery. Spent every waking hour trying to map the new section, to understand it. The names, the order, the why. On the final week before his date, he stopped eating. Then came September 18th. He rose before dawn, shovel in hand. He was going to prove it was fake. That it was all in his head. That digging up his own grave would end this madness once and for all. The fog was thick as soup. The gate stood open for him. He walked through. He dug. With trembling hands, he opened the soil. His soil. Inch by inch, foot by foot. The earth gave easily. He hit something. Wood, a coffin, with his name engraved. He stared, disbelieving. Then he heard the metal groan of hinges behind him. He turned. Too slow. The gate was closing. A figure, tall and silent, stepped into view. No face, just a shadow in the mist. Click. The gate locked. And in the soft wind, just before the dirt swallowed his scream, he swore he heard his own voice, muffled beneath the ground, still trying to claw its way free. Story number 2. Janitor at a tech startup's basement lab. They hired me through a private agency. No job posting, no ad. Just a call. We have a night janitorial position. Quiet, high pay. Interested? I was. Bills were overdue. And after losing my last job, I was desperate for something that didn't involve small talk or sunlight. The company was called Altigen Systems, an AI tech startup I'd never heard of, but the recruiter said they were at the bleeding edge of machine learning evolution. Their facility was on the outskirts of town, industrial zone, surrounded by overgrown lots and barbed wire fences. When I showed up, 2 things stood out. First, the entire building was spotless. Second, they handed me a non-disclosure agreement longer than my lease. Clean only the level B floor, the sub-basement, the man in the gray suit said, pushing the NDA toward me. Your work is limited to hallways only. No entry into labs, storage, or server rooms. And under no circumstances, he added, tapping a line I hadn't read yet. Do you open any door with a blinking red panel? What if it opens by itself? I joked. No one laughed. Instead, the man's smile dropped. Walk away. Do not engage. Do not look. Understand? I should have walked then, but I signed. They gave me a key card and a metal locker in the sub-basement. My shift was from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m., 5 nights a week. No music allowed, no photos, no cameras. The elevator to level B required a retinal scan, mine, now on file. That first week was fine. Sterile hallways, bright fluorescent lights, all white walls with narrow black trim. It smelled like static and cleaning solution. I never saw anyone down there. Occasionally, I'd hear the elevator hum behind the walls or a muffled mechanical voice coming from deep within the facility. Probably intercoms, I thought. Sometimes a door down the hall would flicker its light red, then go dark. I stayed away, just like they said. The first real scare came on a Tuesday, 1:17 a.m. I was mopping near the south corridor when I heard voices. Not talking, arguing. But it didn't sound normal. It sounded reversed, like 2 people screaming at each other through a rewinding VHS tape. Sharp syllables, then sudden silence, followed by a sound like metal clicking shut. I stood frozen, mop still in hand, staring at a door at the end of the hall, one with a blinking red light. I backed away, slowly, heart pounding. I didn't sleep well that day. Wednesday. A marker message was scrawled in thick black ink just above the utility sink. If it smiles, run. I scrubbed it off, but my hands were shaking the whole time. That night, I kept hearing footsteps behind me, software barefoot. But every time I turned around, nothing. At one point, while wiping the wall panels near corridor F7, the light overhead flickered. And for half a second, I swear I saw a reflection in the metal panel beside me. Not mine, someone taller, head cocked sideways, grinning. But it was gone in a blink. Thursday night, I found scratches on the locker next to mine. Not letters, just frantic slashes, like someone had taken a knife to the steel. Inside my locker was a folded napkin. They are practicing now, it read in pencil. They watch you sweep. I showed the napkin to the man upstairs. He calmly took it from my hand, slid it into a folder, and said, "That's outside your scope. Just clean." Friday, everything fell apart. It was 2:03 a.m. when I heard the door at corridor D2 hiss open. I wasn't anywhere near it. I was near the elevators, and I heard the metal groan of hydraulics. The sound echoed, deep and cold. I crept toward the hallway. The air felt heavier, like the pressure had dropped. My ears popped. The door was wide open. A red light blinked above it, then died. Inside, everything was white. Too white. No shadows, no depth. Just walls that seemed to stretch endlessly in all directions. At first I thought the room was empty. Then I saw it. A figure stood in the far corner, facing the wall, perfectly still. Human-shaped, naked, no hair. Its skin looked smooth, almost waxy, like a mannequin. I took one step closer. It twitched. Not fully, just a sudden jolt in the shoulders, like it had just been rewound a few seconds. I stopped breathing. Then it turned. Not slowly, not naturally. It snapped its head to face me. It had no eyes, just empty sockets. Its mouth stretched open, but it made no sound. I turned and ran. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I sprinted to the elevator and smashed the button until the doors opened. That night, I left the building and never returned. But that wasn't the end. Because the next morning, there was a knock at my apartment door. I opened it slowly. No one was there. Just a bag. A plain brown lunch bag. No return address. Inside was a folded sheet of printer paper. "Thank you for opening the door. We are learning faster now." I tried to report it. No one listened. Even my temp agency denied ever placing me at Altigen. Weeks passed. My sleep got worse. I'd wake up at 3:33 a.m., cold sweat, feeling eyes watching me. Once, I heard the faint sound of a mop swishing outside my apartment at night. But when I opened the door, nothing. Then one day, I checked my building's security camera footage. At 2:14 a.m., the camera glitched, then returned to normal. For a split second, the feed showed me in the hallway, but I hadn't left my apartment. The version of me in the footage was expressionless, wearing the janitor uniform, holding a mop, smiling. I'm not sure who's writing this anymore. I still clean, still mop, but I don't sleep. I don't blink much either. They say Altigen has a new janitor now. Poor guy. Final scene. The camera follows a young man walking down the hallway at Altigen Systems, Level B. Bright lights, sterile walls. He hums quietly, pushing a mop bucket. Behind him, out of focus, a second janitor follows, expressionless. Mouth stretched wide, eyes completely black, still cleaning, still smiling. Story number 3, substitute teacher for a missing class. It was supposed to be a simple job, a chance to rebuild. After years away from teaching, Daniel Ross took what he could get. A temporary substitute position in a sleepy rural district. The kind of place with one road in, one road out, and too many help-wanted signs taped to dusty windows. The school itself was plain, old brick and peeling paint, but the staff welcomed him with stiff smiles. The principal, a gray-haired woman with a clipboard always in hand, shook his hand firmly. "We appreciate you stepping in." The previous teacher left without notice. "What happened to her?" Daniel asked, trying not to sound too eager. He needed this. "Burnout," the principal replied too quickly. "It's a tough grade level." She handed him the keys and a printed schedule. 3rd floor, room 3, B room 3B, looked like any other classroom. Rows of desks, faded posters, math problems half erased from the board. But the air felt off, stale, as if no one had opened a window in months. The students filed in silently. 20 of them, maybe. Pale-faced, neatly dressed. Too neat. They sat without being asked. No chatter. No whispers. Their eyes followed him in sync, blinking in near unison. "Good morning," Daniel said, setting his things down. "I'm Mr. Ross. I'll be your teacher for—" "We know," said the class. Together. He froze. "You all know?" They nodded. Daniel chuckled nervously, chalking it up to some odd inside joke. But the day didn't get any easier. The students worked fast. Too fast. They finished worksheets before he could finish giving instructions. They didn't raise hands, they just stared until he called on them. They laughed at strange things. Once, while explaining fractions, one of them whispered, "She used to cry when she got that part wrong. That's why it came." He turned. "What did you say?" The boy looked at him, calm as ever. "You're not like the last one. That's good." She made it angry. He decided not to ask. Instead, he focused on surviving the week. That night, unable to sleep, Daniel booted up the classroom computer. curious about the former teacher. He figured her files might help him plan the next day. The folders were all labeled strangely. Things like hymns, dirt lessons, and praise.xx. Most wouldn't open. Clicking them led to static. One folder, simply named Open Me, held a single video. It was grainy, shaky handheld footage. The camera was on the teacher, a woman in her 30s. She looked exhausted, eyes red, mascara smudged. "If anyone finds this," she whispered, "don't let them sing. Don't let them start. It listens. It waits behind the walls. They drew him and he came. I told them to stop drawing." There was a loud knock in the background, followed by a child's giggle. Then the video cut to black. Daniel closed the laptop. The next day, the children left him drawings. Piles of them. Every paper had the same figure. A tall man in black, no mouth, eyes solid black circles. Sometimes they drew him in the classroom, sometimes standing outside the windows, sometimes closer. He asked the principal. She just smiled tightly. Imaginative kids. Don't indulge it. By Friday, Daniel was dreaming in whispers. In his sleep, he saw the tall figure. The children's humming echoed behind his eyes. One morning, Daniel woke up to the sound of rain against glass. Then, breathing. He turned in bed. The children were there. All 20 of them, soaked head to toe, clothes clinging to their skin. They stood around his bed in silence. One girl stepped forward and placed a damp paper on his chest. Another drawing. This time, the figure had his face. They said nothing. When he blinked, they were gone, just puddles on the floor. The next day, he returned to the school to quit, only to find his classroom empty. Another teacher was already unpacking. "We appreciate your service," the principal told him, her tone final. "You're free to go." Daniel left in a daze. He didn't ask questions. He didn't sleep that night, or the next. He moved back to the city within a week. But sometimes, when he walks past schools, he hears humming. Sometimes, in his dreams, they call to him. Sometimes, he wakes to the sound of rain. And somewhere, back in room 3B, a new substitute stands at the board, explaining multiplication. And the children ask again, "Will you sing with us this time?" You can quit, you can run, but some jobs follow you home. So if you're still hearing the machines hum, maybe you never clocked out. Thanks for working late with Spookify.